John Blewett III's car crash. It was supposed to be another hard-fought night under the lights at Thompson Speedway. But on August 16, 2007, during lap 107 of a 150-lap well-modified tour race, the racing world stopped. John Blewett III, a fierce competitor from Howell, New Jersey, spun out and was struck in the driver's door by his own brother, Jimmy. The moment was brutal, tragic, and raw. John's car landed on top of Jimmy's. From behind the crash, fellow driver Woody Pitkat watched in horror. Jimmy jumped out of his car, frantic, screaming for help. He was a man watching his worst nightmare unfold, powerless to stop it. John suffered fatal head and neck injuries. He was rushed to Hubbard Regional Hospital in Webster, Massachusetts, but the news was grim. He didn't make it. He was only 33. 2 days later, Wall Township Speedway hosted a special memorial. The crowd was quiet but heavy with emotion. On the last lap of the modified race, NASCAR veteran Jamie Tamayo took John's number 76 around the track, one final lap for a fallen friend. Then came a decision that meant everything to the Blewett family. The Speedway officially reserved the iconic number 76. It would never be used again, unless by a member of the Blewett family. It was a quiet, permanent tribute. The North-South Shootout, a major event featuring tour-type modifieds and late models, was renamed in his honor, now forever known as the John Blewett III Memorial North-South Shootout. Whether it's Jimmy behind the wheel or young John IV, who began racing in 2017, the legacy continues. But the memory of that night, of two brothers tangled in tragedy, it's something the racing world hasn't forgotten. It was a brutal reminder of how fast everything can change, even when it's family out there on the track. Aaron's 4.99 at Talladega. It was chaos on lap 163. Dale Jarrett had just muscled the lead away from Earnhardt Jr., and for 2 tenths laps, the two were practically glued side by side. But what happened next made every fan's heart skip. Jimmy Johnson gave Kyle Petty a bump in turn 1. Nothing unusual in a race like this, but that little nudge set off a chain reaction no one could stop. As Petty slid back into line, the field stacked up behind him. Mike Wallace got squeezed, pushing Tony Stewart into the outside wall. And then, all hell broke loose. 24 cars. That's how many were caught in the wreck. It was just one day after a 30-car pileup in the Busch race at the exact same spot. Names like Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, Matt Kenseth, Bobby Labonte, Ricky Rudd, all caught in the mess. Elliott Sadler slammed into the sidewall so hard it left fans breathless. Johnny Benson's car caught fire right on pit road. He had to be pulled out. But somehow, miraculously, no one was seriously hurt. After the dust settled, pit strategy handed Earnhardt Jr. the lead again. With 23 laps to go, he held firm. Even when the race was red flagged with 10 laps left due to oil from Stewart's damaged car and Martin's stalled machine, he didn't flinch. 4 laps remained. The green flag waved, and Earnhardt Jr. pulled off a flawless shootout, beating teammate Waltrip by just 0.1 seconds. That tiny gap was worth every cent of his $184,830 payout. Over $323,000 today. Compare that to Ryan Newman, who finished dead last, taking home just $58,022. And here's the twist. Despite the chaos, 21 cars still finished on the lead lap, an outstanding contrast to the day before when only 3 made it. Dale Earnhardt's car crash. The final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500 was supposed to be a celebration. Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. were running 1-2 with the legendary Dale Earnhardt Sr. right behind them, holding off the field like only the Intimidator could. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. As the pack roared into turn 4, Earnhardt's iconic black number 3 Chevrolet made slight contact with Sterling Marlin's car, sending him sliding up the track. Before anyone could react, he clipped Ken Schrader's car and rocketed head-on into the concrete wall at 155 to 160 miles per hour. The impact was catastrophic. The force, equivalent to a 61-foot vertical drop, ripped the right rear wheel assembly clean off the car and sent the hood slamming against the windshield. Schrader, who climbed out unhurt, rushed to Earnhardt's window net and immediately knew something was horribly wrong. His grim reaction to emergency crews, "We've got bigger problems," was the first sign that this wasn't just another wreck. Hours later, NASCAR President Mike Helton delivered the unthinkable announcement. Dale Earnhardt was dead at 49. An autopsy revealed the cause, a basilar skull fracture, the same injury that had killed 3 other NASCAR drivers in the previous 8 months. The tragedy sent shockwaves through motorsports, exposing glaring safety flaws. Earnhardt, a vocal critic of NASCAR's restrictive rules, had famously resisted using the hands device, a head and neck restraint that might have saved his life. The aftermath was a storm of controversy. debates over broken seatbelts, improper installations, and even death threats against Marlin and seatbelt manufacturer Bill Simpson. But from the grief came change. NASCAR mandated HANS devices, installed safer barriers, and developed the car of tomorrow with reinforced cockpits. Since that day, no driver has died in NASCAR's top 3 series, a testament to Earnhardt's united legacy. His death wasn't just the loss of a 7-time champion, it was the moment racing finally prioritized survival over spectacle. Good Sam Roadside Assistance 500. It was chaos disguised as a finish line. During the final lap at Talladega, everything looked like it might hold together, until it didn't. Ryan Newman somehow threaded the needle, going 4 wide between Casey Mears and Jimmy Johnson in turn 2 without touching a soul. That alone felt like a magic trick, but that was just the warm-up. Matt Kenseth tried to block Clint Bowyer for the lead and accidentally shoved him below the yellow line. By the time Tony Stewart snatched the lead in the trial valve, the entire pack had compressed behind him, 4 wide, 4 rows deep, breathing fire down the back stretch. Kenseth was charging on the high side, while Casey Mears locked bumpers with Michael Waltrip, sending them diving low. Stewart saw the move and tried to block, but it was too late. Waltrip tapped him just enough to send Stewart's car spinning sideways in front of the field. Mears and Waltrip both tried to correct, but one clipped the other and suddenly it wasn't a race. It was a demolition derby. Stewart's car went airborne, flipping upside down and landing hard on top of Casey Kahn, Paul Menard, and Clint Bowyer. 25 cars were swallowed in the wreck. It was metal on metal, tires in the air, engines boiling over. Kenseth, untouched and wide-eyed, crossed the finish line first. Jeff Gordon and Kyle Busch slipped past by dropping to the apron. Greg Biffle and Ryan Newman somehow danced through the debris and smoked to finish 6th and 9th. But the wreck had a cost. Dale Earnhardt Jr. developed headaches 2 days later and was medically pulled from racing due to a concussion. He revealed he'd also been concussed in a tire test back in August. That moment pushed NASCAR to implement a formal concussion protocol and reshape its future. Because this race wasn't just chaos. It was a wake-up call. Mark Hutto's car crash. Mark Hutto, a 42-year-old racer, met a tragic end on April 13, 2002. At the Altamont Raceway Park, it was the AC Delco Sportsman late model main event, and everything unraveled in a matter of seconds. On the 5th lap, Rick Rosbarski's car suddenly lost power at the top of the track after its engine blew. Other racers, caught off guard, scrambled to avoid a collision. Hutto, piloting car number 22, had no clear path. With another car beside him, he had to veer into the infield to escape the chaos. But as he hit the grass, his car lost traction, sliding uncontrollably before slamming head-on into a concrete wall at nearly full speed. There were no skid marks, no sign of last-minute braking, just a brutal, unrelenting impact. Rescue crews rushed in, but it was already too late. Hutto was unconscious, likely gone the instant his car made contact. Despite the arrival of ambulances, fire trucks, and even helicopter, there was nothing to be done. The race came to a halt, but officials never announced his death to the crowd. Instead, all remaining events were quietly canceled. His passing was a harsh reminder of the gaps in safety regulations. While NASCAR had mandated head restraints for its National Series months earlier, short-track racers like Hutto weren't required to wear them. He had only a neck collar, designed to reduce fatigue, not protect against fatal injuries. Hutto had lived in Manteca, California for nearly 14 years, working as a car mechanic. He left behind a wife, Debbie, 2 children, Kimberly and Jesse, and a grieving family. To honor him, the Altamont Raceway Park created the Mark Hutto Memorial Open, ensuring his name would never be forgotten. John Elvis Baker's car crash. The Irwindale Speedway in California was supposed to be a state-of-the-art, ultra-safe track when it opened in 1999. But tragedy struck again and again. On June 8, 2002, during the K&N Filters 150, the unthinkable happened. John Baker, a 48-year-old Arizona native and business owner who raced his number 18 Chevrolet Monte Carlo under his company's sponsorship Midstate Truck and Rigging Inc., was running mid-pack after starting on the pole. Then, on lap 36, everything went horribly wrong. As Baker slowed in turn 2, Greg Voigt, charging from behind, made contact, sending Baker's car rocketing toward the track's outside wall, right where an entry gate created a deadly weak spot. The impact was catastrophic. Baker's car smashed into the gate, opening with brutal force before careening back onto the track, collecting Shawn Woodside in the chaos. Emergency crews rushed Baker to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead on arrival, becoming the first fatality in the NASCAR Featherlight Southwest Series since its 1986 inception, and the 4th death at Irwindale in just 3 years. The race resumed after a red flag, with Voigt finishing 4th and David Gilliland taking the win. But the crowd of 6,200 had no idea what had happened until after the checkered flag. NASCAR quietly shelved the planned tape-delayed broadcast, replacing it with an older Daytona race. The track, finally forced to act, canceled the following weekend's events and reinforced the Deadly Gate area. Baker, a seasoned racer with a best finish of 4th at Las Vegas in 2001, left behind a legacy cut tragically short, another grim reminder of racing's unforgiving risks. Irwindale Speedway, despite its claims of being ultra-safe, had a disturbing history. Opened in 1999, it had already seen 3 deaths, including one on opening night before Baker's. The 4th fatality finally forced the track owners to take action. The next weekend's events were canceled, and the gate Baker hit was sealed off. Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. It was lap 60 under the lights at Daytona, and things went sideways, literally and spectacularly. A 17-car pileup exploded on the backstretch of the Coke Zero 400, slamming the championship hopes of several top drivers and sending fans into a stunned silence. Chase Elliott, who hadn't recorded a single DNF all season, suddenly found himself out of the race, his car mangled and his title hopes flickering. Just moments earlier, he was trailing Tyler Reddick by 10 points in the season standings. Now, he was climbing out of a wrecked car saying, "I was just trying to slow down and hope nobody would hit me." Neither wish came true. Noah Gragson, who'd been behind Ross Chastain, saw it coming. "I pushed him a couple of times. He couldn't handle it," he admitted, describing how unstable Chastain's car felt. "I was trying to get out of the middle lane, but it was too late." Corey LaHoy's number 7 car turned in front of Denny Hamlin, and chaos followed. "Some guys wanted to go, some didn't," Hamlin said. That caused a little contact. That little contact turned into a multi-million-dollar mess on asphalt. Names like Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, and Eric Jones were caught in the madness. Some limped on, others didn't. Bowman and Chastain were 1 lap down. LaHoy, 10 laps down. The rest hanging on by inches of steel and carbon fiber. Ross Chastain had entered the night just 1 point above the playoff cut line. Every lap was a gamble. Now the dice had rolled and the table was spinning. This wasn't just a crash. It was a turning point. It was a brutal reminder that in NASCAR, the difference between a title run and a tow truck can be just one unpredictable push. Aaron's 499 at Talladega 2003. Just 4 laps in, the track turned into a battlefield. Ryan Newman, who had already gone airborne earlier that year at Daytona, blew a tire entering turn 1 and slammed head-on into the wall. His car nearly flipped over, then spun out like a wild top into the middle of the pack. It was pure chaos. Sparks flew, flames burst out from under his hood. And just when it couldn't get worse, one of his tires flew off and got nailed by Ricky Rudd's car, launching it clean over the catch fence. That tire didn't just bounce, it landed in a restricted access area, like a grenade landing behind enemy lines. The wreck swept up 26 other cars, making it a 27-car pileup. At the time, the largest crash in NASCAR Winston Cup Series history. Only the 2024 Yellowwood 500 would top it with 28. Drivers scrambled to regain control, but most were helpless. Hermie Sadler, Johnny Benson, Casey Mears, they were done on impact. Rusty Wallace and Jerry Nadeau came back for a few laps after repairs, but had to call it quits. Somehow, Matt Kenseth, the championship leader, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. made it through with just scrapes. Kenseth managed a top 10 finish, but Dale Jr., he went from dead last, starting in 43rd due to an engine change, to first place. His fender got clipped in the melee, and he even found himself nearly half a lap down. But in classic Earnhardt fashion, he clawed his way back and stole the lead from Kenseth in the final laps to win his 4th straight race at Talladega. Oh, and just like clockwork, the Busch race the day before had its own tire blowout. Big one. Same track, same script, Johnny Sutter blew a tire in turn 4 and took 22 cars with him. Some weekends at Talladega just don't care who you are. Shawn Balluzzo's car crash. Shawn Balluzzo wasn't just a race car driver. He was a legend, especially at Langley Speedway. The man had an iron grip on the modified division, winning 11 championships. He'd become such a fixture at the Virginia track that beating him was like beating gravity. Drivers lined up to race against him because if you could get the edge out on Shawn, you earned your win. On the night of July 11th, 2020, the track opened its season with twin 50-lap races. In the first heat, Shawn finished second, still sharp at 64. But in the second race, tragedy struck. His car, powered by a 283 cubic inch Ford engine, clipped another competitor, launched off the ground, and slammed hood first into the wall at turn 2. Other drivers saw the hit and knew instantly. It was a bad one. One said it felt surreal, like time had warped for a second. Emergency crews had to remove the roof just to get him out. He was rushed to the hospital, but didn't make it. Just like that, Langley lost its king. What makes it even more heartbreaking? This was the first fatal racing crash at Langley since 2004, and the last NASCAR-affiliated driver death in recent memory. People weren't just mourning a racer, they were mourning a father of four, a fierce competitor, and a guy who, according to fellow racers, feared nothing. One called him the most fearless guy I ever raced against. Tickets to see Balluzzo race were about $12 to $15, a small price to watch greatness fly by at 120 miles an hour. Now, fans leave flowers, not cheers at the track. Matt Carter, who won both races that night, called it bittersweet. It was a great night for me, and it turned into a tragedy. Because when Shawn Balluzzo crashed, it wasn't just a car that stopped. It was the heartbeat of Langley Speedway.